Thank you for joining us on this very special day and for being part of our global celebration of curiosity and wonder. Thank you. So that we are now through the formal Obscura portion, and we can move forward. We have poetry for you tonight. Jack Kerouac wrote haiku, prose poetry, prose. He kind of did it all. And so firstly, we're going to hear a little bit about his time here in the house. And then we're going to have some haiku read to us by one of our residents. We have 4 residents a year here at the Kerouac Project. They stay for 3 months free, and we give them a stipend for their food. And they come in from all over the world, and they are free to write while they're here. So they apply. We have about 330 applicants this year in how many countries? About 30-ish countries. So, and if they get chosen, they come here. We try to make their stay as congenial as possible. And we encourage them to mix with the local writing community. They normally do a workshop while they're here. They do a potluck when they arrive. We do a potluck when they arrive to welcome them. And then we do an ending reading when they leave to check up on what they've been doing. And that's pretty much all that we require of them, except Shasta has been incredibly gracious because we keep saying, oh, FYI, we have a paint-out event here. We have an Obscura event here, and she's rolled with it, which is very sweet. But we exist to maintain this historic home, to encourage up-and-coming writers from around the world, and then to seed those writers out into our writing community to make it stronger and more diverse. So that is who we are. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And first I'd like to ask Jeff to come up and just say a few words about Jack's time in this house. And then we will move on to haiku.
All right. I'm Jeff Benj. I'm the better half, and I'm also from New Zealand. Welcome to the Kerouac House. Put this up a little bit more. There we go. That's better. The house here, as it probably looks, it's nearly 100 years old. It was put here. It was built around 1919, 1920. So we're right in there. So Jack Kerouac lived here during 1957 and 58. And the reason he lived here, you might ask, well, why College Park, Florida? And the reason was because his sister and brother-in-law had moved to Florida. His brother-in-law was an ex-military guy, and he was involved in the space program. So they moved here, and they lived 2.5 blocks over that way on Yates Street. So Jack brought his mother down because she was very attached to his sister. And they stayed there, but Jack could not get on with his brother-in-law for obvious reasons. So he found this place. It was for rent, and so he rented it. But he didn't actually rent the whole house. He rented this little back lean-to part here where there's 2 rooms back there and a bathroom. And on a tour, you'll get to see that. And then somebody else lived in the front of the house. So Jack moved in here, and soon after he moved in here, he left his mother, who slept in a little divan right under that far window there. There was no air conditioning back then, and he went to New York for the release of his book On the Road. And so Jack left here, he took a Greyhound bus to New York City, and he was kind of an unknown writer. He'd published 1 book before The Town and the City, and it had gone nowhere, and it was just so-so. And then suddenly he goes to New York, and they release this book, and he becomes an overnight sensation. Some of you probably heard the story, but the part of the reason was that the main book reviewer for the New York Times was on vacation at the time, and the fill-in guy absolutely loved On the Road and wrote this most stunning review of it, much to the chagrin of the regular reviewer, who, when he came back from vacation, tried to write another review that tore the book to pieces, but it was too late. The horse had bolted, and so Jack came back here to Florida, a very famous writer, and of course, what comes with being a famous writer is you got to produce another book. So during his time here in December of 57, over 11 and a half days, he wrote Dharma Bums in the back bedroom out here. If you go on the tour, we'll show you where that is. In a crazy frenzy, he wrote Dharma Bums here, and it was published later in '58. And again, it was hugely successful. A lot of people don't know that Jack Kerouac also wrote. He didn't write it in this house, but he also wrote Big Sur here in Orlando. So he lived here. Became famous. He wrote a play called Beat Generation also while he lived here, and that was performed for the first time only 2 years ago. And hopefully, there's some talk of wanting to put a performance of it on here at the house, and hopefully that'll work out. But the executor of Jack's estate just recently died, and so the rights to that's in limbo at this moment. So, but this is the house, and so the reason it's really famous and why it's on the National Register of Historic Places is because even though Jack didn't live here a long time, this is where he became famous, and this is where he wrote his second most popular book. And it's an interesting neighborhood, interesting place. And afterwards, we'll have tours. You can come through the house and see and check it out. As we say, it's since 2000. We've been inviting writers and residents to live in the house. They come for 3 months. We pay them food stipend and all the costs of living here. Our gift to them is time to come develop their talent. And I'm actually the vice president of the residency program. So right now we're 2 weeks away from choosing the next 4 writers who will start in the fall through. And we do get applications from all over the world, and it's really become very competitive to come to the residency. And that's great because then we get wonderful writers like Shasta, and then right after her residency ends at the end of April. No, we're in May. And then we have at the beginning of June, we have a wonderful poet, Jacob Shaw's coming in, and he'll be here over the summer. And if you're interested, check out our Facebook page. We're Kerouac House under that. There'll be a welcome potluck here on Friday the 9th of June for Jacob. It's free. Come along. Bring something to share with people. And then there'll be a final reading towards the end of August. And Shasta will be giving a final reading here on Saturday, May 20th at 7:30. Again, it's free, open to the public. Come, enjoy her reading, have some wine, fellowship. Which wine? Yes, we have wine and beer over here. I mean, this is a Kerouac event. You can't just sit there and not imbibe something. So there's plenty of wine and beer over here. So I hope you enjoy the night and have fun.
So I'd like to introduce to you Shasta Grant now. Shasta is our current resident. She actually lives in Singapore with her husband and son, and she discouraged her husband from applying apparently for this residency, and then secretly applied herself. And then she looks so cute and sweet. And then she had to tell him that she had got the residency and would be leaving him and the 9-year-old son behind. So they're still married, right? Yeah, so far so good. They actually came for a couple of weeks, which was nice. I hope that was restorative for you. Maybe he'll come next time. But anyway, Shasta is going to read some haiku of Jack Kerouac's, which she says doesn't fit the rules of haiku, which is Jack Kerouac. I mean, really. And then after that, John is going to come up and give us a little talk about haiku, and we're going to have a little try at making some ourselves. So here we go, Shasta.
Thank you, Jana, for that lovely and personal introduction. I'm going to read a handful of haikus that Kerouac wrote in Orlando. Full moon, pine tree, old house. Trees can't reach for a glass of water. 3 little sparrows on the roof, talking quietly, sadly. Big books packaged from Japan, Ritz crackers. The full moon, the cat gone, my sleeping mother. Reading the sutra, I decided to go straight. 1 drop from the blue spruce, 2 more drops. Spring moon on 2nd Avenue, girl in white coat. At night, the girl I denied, walking away.
Thank you.
All right. So, yeah, I'm kind of a white guy of a certain age, so I've gone through a Kerouac phase. And my Kerouac phase actually came to me through William S. Burroughs, who crazier than Jack. Although when him and Allen Ginsberg and William S. Burroughs got together, I wouldn't want to wager who was the weirdest and the strangest when they all got together. So I wanted to read a letter he wrote while in Mexico, while in some trouble, a letter that he wrote to William S. Burroughs. Wow. Okay. I got that completely wrong. This is to Jack from William S. Burroughs. All right. This makes more sense. Okay. And I was sober when I looked this up this afternoon. All right. So this is 1952. All right. And I presume this had something to do with the unfortunate fate of William S. Burroughs' wife. So William S. Burroughs writes, "Dear Jack, I can't make any definite arrangement with you because I don't know when or how or by route I will leave Mexico. When I do know, we'll inform you. Also, it is not for me to decide how long I'll remain in Mexico. Once the case is settled, the immigration department allows me 5 days to pack up and get out of the country, with the alternative of forcible deportation to the U.S. I am relieved to hear the liquidation of Old Bull Balloon and the advent of Bill Hubbard. My novel is coming along. Expect to finish it in 2 or 3 months more, as I don't write from scratch. In fact, I can't. When I write, it is simply a question of putting down in some sequence what is already there. The excerpts from your novel sound mighty fine. Of course, the Finnegan's Wake kind of thing can only be fully appreciated in the context of the whole work, which in the case of this kind of writing, more than any other, is an actual amoeboid-like organism. With marker away, I got another habit. Start cutting down tomorrow. With plenty coding, there's nothing to kicking a habit. Done it 5 times in the past 2 years. I'm not sure if that counts as kicking. The habit I got partly for my health. I was convalescent from jaundice and wanted to cut out drinking completely for a month or so. Been seeing a lot of bullfights, good kicks. Going to a cockfight this evening. I like my spectacles brutal, bloody, and degrading. How can you not be friends with someone who writes letters like that? Why this arbitrary date, the 18th, for your arrival here? Why don't you just come on down here now? Right at the moment, legal proceedings are immobilized by Holy Week. I asked the secretary, how come no court this week? And she said, because we are Christian. Unlike some other people who shall be nameless. I am due in court Monday, and if the ballistic experts are there, and the judge ain't in Acapulco, and Gerardo shows, maybe I will be acquitted or convicted or something definite. No word from Alan. My best to Neil. As ever, Bill. So, yeah, I was asked to read some Kerouac poetry, and I go, yeah, fine. And then it turns out I don't have any. But I thought I would go from a letter from Mexico to Kerouac's Mexico City Blues, 242 choruses, and I Ching method, just pick one at random. So this is chorus, 112th chorus. Don't sound reasonable, don't sound possible when you bring it up. But if you don't bring it up, everything is all right. Don't believe, Mr. Believe Me? Don't think about him, and boy, you'll see how he vanishes in the morning's mist. When the moon is a crescent, a banana, and birds jump, and far over the Atlantic, where red Amida is shining, you'll hear the call trumpet of east is all right with the west. In the orb of the womb of Tathagata, so round, so empty, so unbelievably false-lyingly empty of parsimony. All right, so my understanding of haiku comes to me from Billy Collins. So it does make sense that Jack would not color in the lines when it comes to haiku. And, you know, Americans, we love haiku. I mean, as much as we love any poetry, we love haiku because it's very concentrated. There's absolute rules. You can count the syllables. We're good at counting in America. We're not good at actually imagining things, but we're great at counting. So haiku lets you count, and you know when you're done. And all right, you have successfully written a haiku if it has the right amount of syllables in 3 lines. But Billy Collins points out that there's a component missing in that haiku are supposed to also chronicle the time of year. So you have very few syllables to work with, and in only 17 syllables, you also have to mention what fucking time of year you happen to be in, so it's like, okay, you have almost no room to work in, plus you have to do this kind of arbitrary thing. And I think it has something to do with just being alert and alive to the moment. We imagine that we are, perfect beings and that the world was made for us. And haiku is like, no, we're kind of like ants on this planet. We'll be finding out about that soon. But so here's a great haiku by Billy Collins. So, midwinter evening, alone at the sushi bar, just me and this eel. That has stayed with me for years. And that, midwinter evening, somehow this is not a summer poem. I don't know exactly why it's special, but that is the key to writing haiku. So you're supposed to start by mentioning the time of year. And actually, I think tonight is a perfectly perverse moment to try and write a haiku, because tonight should not be happening. Not like this. All of you should be sweating and miserable. You should be looking at me saying, you're a lunatic for wearing a jacket, and I hate you. You may be thinking that you hate me, but it's independent of the weather. This is, almost scary weather for May, because this is really a pleasant evening. So I don't know if anyone has things to write with.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So, we need to count those. So what are we counting? Like, how many syllables?
Oh, it goes 575.
Can we all remember that, or do we need to write it down somewhere?
575.
575. And start with something about
Time of year.
And time of year.
Time of year must be mentioned.
All right, what we do here is we had the National Haiku Society here last year, and they spent the day here just haikuing. And they're very, very intense. And when they were finished, they wrote their favorite haiku that they'd made while they were here, and they put it on the tree. I think it's the ligustrum. So I thought we'd do that again tonight. We'd have a little 10-minute try at writing a haiku. And then if we want to, when it's over, we can hang it on the tree and leave something here at Jack's house when we go. So I have some pens and some paper, and you can have a think about 575 and something to do with the time of year. Doesn't have to be spring, though, does it? Like, could be snowing, right?
Now.
Yeah. No, not now. Theoretically.
Oh, yeah, if they want to write about some other time.
Right. That's fine. I like your jacket.
Thank you.
The house itself is 100 years old, just on, but the back part was, the lean-to, was constructed after the Second World War, and apparently a lot of houses after the Second World War had their porches enclosed for single men who would come and live in them, because there was a shortage of housing, and so it wasn't unusual to live on somebody's back porch, as Jack did. Though he did spend most of his time outside because of the heat. He started off, his mother, when she arrived here in early spring, said that she would never leave this place. It was paradise. And by the time they hit the summer, they were like, get me out of this stinking hole. So whoops. But he would sleep outside, out the back. This second house, which we also own, because it was on a single deed when we bought the property, it was bought in when they expanded I-4. So it was not here at the time that Jack was here. I don't know how you bring in a concrete block house, but apparently they did. And so this was all citrus behind, and he loved to lie out in the citrus grove at night. And when he did come back from Mexico, he went from here to Mexico on a little jaunt and sort of got very ill. He was supposed to meet his girlfriend down there, but he didn't last that long. He got very sick. And so he came back, I guess, to be with his mom. And she was away. So he lay on the back right around the corner there and puked his heart out all night. So, we don't charge anything for the dirt. If anybody needs to get a little bit of that to be right where Jack was. But when he came back from New York, as Jeff said, and he was suddenly famous, there was a ton of pressure on him to produce, and also he had money for the first time, and with money apparently he went from drinking beer to drinking spirits, and that sort of was the start of the end. So it was kind of a two-edged sword. But we are on to haiku now. So look, this is an experience. This is something you've never done before, right? And how awesome would you feel tomorrow morning when you go to work and you tell somebody that you read a haiku where Jack stood? You would feel just like, holy schmoly, I am so empowered. And like it could go on your resume. You could be like a haiku poet at the Kerouac house, May of, 2017, whatever, you want to do with that. So would anyone like to come and share the haiku? Is anyone feeling brave enough? Yay! If you want to say your name, you can do that too, because that's kind of fun, and where you're from, because we're actually not all local. There's people from different places. So whatever you feel you can muster up.
Hi, my name is Jay Madigan. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and we just met some people from Cleveland. My wife is from Warsaw, Poland. 7 days in May. Tomorrow may not be yours. Our blue room to be.
All right. My dad is confused and asked me to write his poem on this cool spring eve.
I'm not a poet, but I wanted to write for the tree, which is going to be gone soon. For the oak tree by the house, stretching to the sky. No, sorry, wait. I didn't put that in there, and it belongs there. Stretching to the sky, gray limbs and gray, hoary hair, we will miss your shade.
I'm Kevin. I'm from Orlando by way of New Jersey. I'm a local author. Leaves perish with grace, the fresh, crisp taste of apples. I long for autumn. New Jersey had autumn. Here it doesn't.
All right, she wrote two. When summer blows cool, we hear the jacket man read Jack Kerouac poems. And the second one, mockingbird perches on a telephone wire, cricket's summer call.
The sunlight listens. Gathered in her arms, we can only sing.
So mine is Midsummer rain falls. Looks gray through glass office walls. Cold in here, warm there.
My name's Christopher. Also Orlando by way of New Jersey. It's kind of interesting. I live around the corner. I just moved here recently. Yay. I've walked by here a few times. I never took notice, so I was happily surprised. Spring night at Jack's house. Feeling alive and grateful. Haikus and fresh air.
The days are longer. The days are longer. Sleepy birds just went to sleep, leaving silence now.
I'm Madison. I live out in Oviedo, and I actually wrote two that are related.
Beginning of May, unseasonably cold here in Kerouac's yard. Many new haikus written by the curious. Wish I wore long sleeves.
Okay, Karen is going to come and read to us. And if it gets too dark, we have some flashlights. Yeah, Jeff's going to turn that on, or I can hold a flashlight for you. Karen is also on the board of the Kerouac Project, and she is a researcher. So if you have specific questions, she would know more than any of us, I would think. And she also teaches at Full Sail.
Okay, I'm going to start with these are just some poems by Jack. I'm going to read 4. They're not really long, and they're very beat-like, you know. So I'm going to try to do it justice. And this is called Daydreams for Ginsberg. I lie on my back at night, hearing the marvelous, strange chime of the clocks, and know it's midnight, and in that instant the whole world swims into sight for me in the form of beautiful swarming mudda worlds. Everything is happening, shining Bahuda lands, booty. Blazing in faith, I know I'm forever right, and all's I got to do, as I hear the ordinary extant voices of ladies talking in some kitchen at midnight, oilcloth cups of cocoa, car door to mump, the Rinnegan in his darlin' drain. I will write it, all the talk of the world, everywhere in this morning, leaving open parentheses sections for my own accompanying inner thoughts, with roars of me, all brain, all world, roaring, vibrating. I put it down swiftly, 1,000 words of pages, compressed into one second of time. I'll be long-robed and long golden-haired in the famous Greek afternoon of some Greek city, fame immortal, and they'll have to find me where they find the thnup of my shroud bags, flying, flag-yagging Lucian, midnight back in their mouths. Gurvdal will be amazed, annoyed, my words be writ in gold and preserved in libraries like Finnegan's Wake and Visions of Neil. This one is How to Meditate. Lights out, fall, hands clasped into instantaneous ecstasy like a shot of heroin or morphine, the gland inside of my brain discharging the good glad fluid, holy fluid, as I hop down and hold all my body parts down to a dead stop trance, healing all my sicknesses, erasing all, not even the shred of I hope you or a loony balloon left in it, but the mind blank, serene, thoughtless. When a thought comes a-springing from afar with its held-forth figure of image, you spoof it out, you spuff it out, you fake it, and it fades, and thought never comes, and with joy you realize for the first time thinking's just like not thinking, so I don't have to think anymore. This is Tenor Man, T-E-N-O-R. Sweet, sad young tenor, horn slumped around neck, bearded, full of junk, slouches waiting for apocalypse. Listen to the new Negro raw trumpet kid tell him the wooden news, and the beat of the bass drives in, drummer drops a bomb, piano tinkle tackles, sweet tenor lifting, all American sorrows, raises mouthpiece to mouth, and blows to finger the iron sounds. And the last one, to Harpo Marx. Oh, Harpo, when did you seem like an angel the last time and played the gray harp of gold? When did you steal the silverware and bug spray the guests? When did your brother find rain in your sunny courtyard? When did you chase your last blonde across Millionaire's lawn with a bait hook on a line protruding from your bicycle? Or when you last powder-puffed your white flower face with fish barrel cover? Harpo, who was that lion I saw you with? How did you treat the midget and conk the giant? Harpo, in your recent nightclub appearance in New Orleans, were you old? Were you still chiding with your horn and the cane at your golden belt? Did you still emerge from your pockets another Harpo or screw on new wrists? Was your vow of silence an Indian harp? That's all. Thank you.
Next we have Danielle Kissinger, and she is also a board member, and she's going to read one of her favorite passages from, is it On the Road or? From Dharma Bums. All right, which he wrote right here. So maybe Jack's watching us and listening. That would be kind of awesome. We have, we've had, how many? About 60 residents? Something like that. And some of them really feel that they feel Jack here. And some of them don't. But perhaps he will be here tonight with us. So Danielle, come and read to us. Are you going to be able to read, or would you like me to hold a flashlight for you?
Okay, so before I read, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about my history with Dharma Bums. I first read Dharma Bums when I was living in Colorado, and I had no idea at that time about the Florida connection. So I first read it because I kind of was a little obsessed with the poet Gary Snyder, who spent a lot of time in Asia and really influenced Jack Kerouac and is represented in Dharma Bums as the character Jaffe. And so I first came to Dharma Bums because I was looking for Gary Snyder, not because of Jack Kerouac. And I was really excited to read it. And when I read it, I really didn't connect to it at all. I kind of think I recognized some of the men in it as guys I was in school in and thought, oh no, it's like they're like literary dudes. And I wasn't a huge fan. I didn't really connect to it. And then I moved to Orlando, and I hadn't been here too long, and they had a kind of a book club type event at the house in which people were reading Dharma Bums, and we learned about the history of Jack Kerouac writing Dharma Bums here, and the book totally changed for me that second time. Because instead of living in Colorado and reading about his time in the mountains and kind of, feeling very feminist, I instead felt like a person who had come from the mountains and was in Florida, and it was hot and it was buggy, and the mountains were so far away. And I realized that the predominant feeling I got the second time reading Dharma Bums was one of just profound nostalgia. And you realize reading it that he wasn't writing it out west. He was sitting here in this back porch with his mother. He had, On the Road had just become famous, and he was struggling with that fame. And he was thinking about a time that was simpler, and a time when he was learning, and a time when he was still striving to be a writer that was known. And so I really think that this book then really changed for me, and I really loved parts of it and his feeling of learning and that nostalgia for the mountains and the West and those friendships that built him as a writer. So I picked a passage in here when he's up in the mountains hiking with Gary Snyder's character, Jaffe. We parked the car and got all our gear out and arranged it in the warm sun. Jaffe put things in my knapsack and told me I had to carry it or jump in the lake. He was being very serious and literally, and it pleased me more than anything else. Then, with the same boyish gravity, he went over to the dust of the road with the pickaxe and drew a big circle and began drawing things in the circle. What's that? I'm doing a magic mandala that'll not only help us on our climb, but after a few more marks and chants, I'll be able to predict the future from it. What's a mandala? They're the Buddhist designs that are always circles filled with things. The circle representing the void and the thing's illusion, see? You sometimes see mandalas painted over a bodhisattva's head and can tell his history from studying it, Tibetan in origin. I had on the tennis sneakers, and now I whipped out my mountain climbing cap for the day, which Jaffe had consigned to me, which was a little black French beret, which I put on at a jaunty angle and hitched the knapsack up, and I was ready to go. And the sneakers and the beret, I felt more like a bohemian painter than a mountain climber. But Jaffe had on his fine big boots and his little green Swiss cap with feather and looked elfin but rugged. I see the picture of him alone in the mountains in that outfit, the vision, its pure morning in the high, dry Sierras. Far off, clean firs can be seen shadowing the sides of rocky hills. Further yet, snow-capped pinpoints. Nearer, the big bushy forms of pines. And there's Jaffe in his little cap with a big rucksack on his back, clomping along, but with a flower in his left hand, which is hooked to the strap of the rucksack at his breast. Grass grows out between crowded rocks and boulders. Distant sweeps of scree can be seen making gashes down the side of morning. His eyes shine with joy, and he's on his way. His heroes are John Muir and Han Shan and Shi Te and Li Po and John Burroughs and Paul Bunyan. He's small and has a funny kind of belly coming out as he strides, but it's not because his belly is big, it's because his spine curves a bit. But that's offset by the vigorous long steps he takes, actually the long steps of a tall man, as I found following him up trail, and his chest is deep and shoulders broad. "Gone dang it, Jaffe, I feel great this morning," I said, as we locked the car and all three of us started swinging down the lake road with our packs, straggling a bit, occupying side and center and other side of the road like straggling infantrymen. "Isn't this a hell of a lot greater than the place? Getting drunk in there on a fresh Saturday morning like this, all bleary and sick, and here we are by the fresh, pure lake walking along in this good air. By God, it's a haiku in itself." "Comparisons are odious, Smith," he sent sailing back to me, quoting Cervantes and making a Zen Buddhist observation to boot. "I don't make a damn friggin' difference whether you're in the place or hiking up Matterhorn. It's all the same old void, boy." And I mused about that and realized he was right. Comparisons are odious. It's all the same, but it sure felt great, and suddenly I realized this, in spite of my swollen foot veins, would do me a lot of good and get me away from drinking, and maybe make me appreciate perhaps a whole new way of living. "Jaffe, I'm glad I met you. I'm going to learn all about how to pack rucksacks and what to do and hide in these mountains when I'm sick of civilization. In fact, I'm grateful I met you." "Well, Smith, I'm grateful I met you too. Learn about how to write spontaneously and all that. That's nothing. To me, it's a lot. Let's go, boys. A little faster. We ain't got no time to waste." By and by, we reached the boiling yellow dust, where caterpillars were churning around, and great big, fat, sweaty operators who didn't even look at us were swearing and cussing on the job. For them to climb a mountain, you have to pay them double time and quadruple time today, Saturday. Jaffe and I laughed to think about it. I felt a little embarrassed with my silly beret, but the operators didn't even look, and soon we left them behind and were approaching the final little store lodge at the foot of the trail. It was a log cabin set right at the end of the lake, and it was enclosed in a V of pretty big foothills. Here we stopped and rested a while on steps. We'd hiked approximately 4 miles, but on flat, good road, and went in and bought candy and crackers and Cokes and stuff. Then suddenly Morley, who'd not been silent on the 4-mile hike, looked funny in his own outfit, which was the immense packboard with air mattress and all deflated now, and no hat at all, so he looked just like he does in the library, with big floppy pants of some kind. Morley suddenly remembered he'd forgotten to drang the crankcase. "So he forgot to drang the crankcase," I said, noticing their consternation and not knowing much about cars. "So he forgot to drain the drank base. No, this means that if it gets below freezing tonight, down here the goddamn radiator explodes, and we can't drive back and home and have to walk 12 miles to Bridgeport and get all hung up." But then I felt sorry for poor old hapless Henry and said, "Hell, you mean you're not going to climb with us today? The hell with that crankcase. Come on with us. It'd cost too much money if that thing freezes tonight. Smith, no, I think I better go back." "You know," I said, "I think it doesn't make any difference to him anyway. He's just satisfied to wander around and forget things. And pat his belly and look at things as they are, sorta like Shanghai," said Jaffe, and I had a good laugh watching forlorn Henry swaggering down all that road, and we'd only just negotiated, alone and mad. "Well, here we go," said Jaffe. "When I get tired of this big rucksack, we'll swap." Both of us were feeling fine, and were talking a blue streak about anything. Literature, the mountains, girls, Princess, the poets, Japan, our past adventures in life. And suddenly I realized it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Morley had forgotten to drain the crankcase. Otherwise, Jaffe wouldn't have got a word in edgewise all the blessed day, and now I had a chance to hear his ideas. And the way he did things, hiking, he reminded me of Mike, my boyhood chum, who also also loved to lead the way, real grave like Buck Jones, eyes to the distant horizons like Natty Bumppo, cautioning me about snapping twigs. It's too deep here. Let's go down the creek a ways to ford it, or there'll be mud in that low bottom. We better skirt around, and dead serious and glad. I saw all Jaffe's boyhood in those eastern Oregon forests, the way he went about it. He walked like he talked. From behind, I could see his toes pointed slightly inward, the way mine do instead of out, but when it came time to climb, he pointed his toes out like Chaplin, to make a kind of easier flap thwop as he trudged. We went across a kind of muddy river bottom through dense undergrowth and a few willow trees, and came out on the other side, a little wet, and started up the trail, which was clearly marked and named and had been recently repaired by the trail crews. But as we hit parts where a rock had rolled on the trails, he took great precaution to throw the rock off, saying, "I used to work on trail crews. I can't see a trail all meddlesome like this, Smith." As we climbed, the lake began to peer below us, suddenly in its clear blue pool, and we could see the deep holes where the lake had its springs, like black wells, and we could see schools of fish skitter. Oh, this is like an early morning in China, and I'm 5 years old, and beginningless time. I sang out and felt like sitting by the trail and whipping out my little notebook and writing sketches about it. "Look over there," said Jaffe. "Yellow aspens. Just put me in the mind of a haiku. Talking about the literary life, the yellow aspens. Walking in this country, you could understand the perfect gems of haikus the Oriental poets had written, never getting drunk in the mountains or anything, but just going along as fresh as children, writing down what they saw, without literary devices or fanciness of expression. We made up haikus as we climbed, winding up and up now on the slopes of brush. Rocks on the side of the cliff, I said. Why don't they tumble down? Maybe that's a haiku, maybe not. It might be a little too complicated," said Jaffe. "A real haiku's got to be as simple as porridge, and yet make you see the real thing. Like the greatest haiku of them all is probably the one that goes, 'The sparrow hops along the veranda with wet feet.' You see, the wet footprints like a vision in your mind, and yet in those few words you also see all the rain that's been falling that day, and almost smell the wet pine needles. Let's have another. I'll make up one of my own this time. Let's see. Lake below, the black holes the wells make. No, that's not a haiku, goddammit. You never can be too careful about haiku. How about making them up, real fast as you go along, spontaneously? Look here," he cried happily, "mountain lupine. See the delicate blue color those little flowers have, and there's some California red poppy over there. The whole meadow is just powdered with color. Up there, by the way, is a genuine California white pine. You never see them much anymore. You sure know a lot about birds and trees and stuff. I've studied it all my life." Then also, as we went on climbing, we began getting more casual and making funnier, sillier talk. And pretty soon we got to a bend in the trail. Well, it was suddenly glady and dark with shade, and a tremendous cataracting stream was bashing and frothing over scrummy rocks and tumbling on down. And over the stream was a perfect bridge formed by a fallen snag. We got on it and lay belly down and dunked our heads down, hair wet, and drank deep as the water splashed in our faces, like sticking your head by the jet of a dam. I lay there a good long minute, enjoying the sudden coolness. "This is like an advertisement for Rainier Ale," yelled Jaffe. "Let's sit a while and enjoy it. Boy, you don't know how far we got yet to go. Well, I'm not tired. Well, you'll be, Tiger."
Thank you. That was wonderful. And to think that he wrote it here in the heat of the summer with mosquitoes, and the scent of the orange blossom is kind of, gives it a different feel. So what we are going to do now is take you on a tour of the house if you like, or you can stay laying on your little rug or whatever. We have Jeff is on the board, John is on the board, Jacket Man, Danielle is on the board, Karen is on the board, I'm on the board. Is anyone else here on the board? That's it? So we are all sort of in some degree familiar with what's going on here, we could answer your questions. But Karen and Jeff are going to lead the 2 tours, and I think we'll just start one at the front door and one at the back door. So thank you so much.